active in our church here in Thousand Oaks, but he is a psychologist. He works for Kaiser Permanente up in the Bay Area. He has both his master's and doctorate degree is in therapy. He has been on the radio. He's had his own talk show, I believe, radio ministry and family ministry. He has spoken at our mental health seminars, and he's a very fun person to talk to. So and fun person to listen to. So I won't take up any more time, but Dr. Lowe, would you please guide us through the lessons that you want us to hear tonight?
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that kind introduction. You know, Pastor Curtis is extremely generous. He often call me names and give me credit for which I don't deserve. And I just want to begin there. And I said, you folks are so blessed having him as a pastor. And I'm hoping that tonight I could speak a few things from my heart as well from my personal experience relating to COVID-19, as well how to deal with this pandemic in a healthy manner and in a biblical manner. So I hope with that being said, I want to start off, with a slide here, which depict kind of a person that was in the, frontline worker and weeping over to some of the losses he encountered. And I have to say, I just stepped off from ED a couple of days ago, on Saturday, and there has been some pretty disheartening patient that came into ED. And I won't go into the detail, but I can relate to this man where COVID-19 have brought upon us a lot of profound losses. So with this picture depicting what we've been through last year, right? I can imagine that most of us would have a lot of questions. I wonder what thought you have as you're entering 2021. And so I have heard, shouldn't the pandemic be over by now? Or are we facing the second and third or fourth wave as we entering 2021? And are they worse than the first wave? And last but not the least important, are there still toilet paper in Costco? So I guess some of the questions are affirmative, some of which are just lighthearted, right? But I was a little astounded when people were hoarding toilet paper, only realized that they hoard too much, they can't use them all. And they tried to return to Costco and were rejected. So now, I think at a glance, right, I know this is a kind of busy slide. I think from the cost of COVID-19, I think it affected not just personally because the shelter in place caused us to go into social isolation. Church cannot be conducted in person. A lot of elderly were complaining about loneliness. And worse yet is that, oh, I'm sorry, there's a typo here, loss of routines, right? We don't get a sense of normalcy anymore and a lot of future uncertainties from a personal point of view. And then business-wise, we have seen how much it devastated the global economy, estimated 1.3 billion people. That's kind of larger than a lot of countries, global workforce at risk. And then physically and mentally, right? And personally, I have gained at least 3 pounds because of inactivity. And I don't want to post a survey here because a lot of you wouldn't raise your hand, but we all know we gained some COVID waves. So I certainly have witnessed a lot of anxiety, depression coming into emergency room and our regular outpatient clinic. So just to illustrate the magnitude in which it's affected us. And I kind of want to bring out, because I am volunteering at the National Alliance of Mental Illness, they call it short for NAMI. Some of you may have been exposed to NAMI, right? And these are written by local Asian American. And the parents were complaining that the kids with their study and work all turn upside down before they can use to predict that when they're going to play game, when they're going to do the homework, but all that is out the window. So, and they tend to interact with peers just virtually online and through Zoom. You know, a year and a half ago, we never heard of Zoom, but now these days we've become Zoom fatigue. And they talk about surfing internet nonstop because that's seemingly the only connection they have to the outside world. For foreign students, and some of the foreign students face a reality, some of which we don't really can fathom. like the US travel policy, our door keep closing as we have a trade war with China. And they have trouble returning to China or even back and forth. They don't know if they can stay. They don't know if they should go home. And a lot of students told me that they locked themselves in the room in fear of COVID-19 and also in fear of not knowing where to go. So insomnia, the future, that kind of plagues them on a daily basis. So I think that kind of sums up a picture of what we've been through, right? So I don't know if anybody have any other words to describe what we've been through. Anything that I haven't covered? Sounds depressing, right? Okay, so I just want to throw a few latest number that we know, right? Percentage of parents agreeing that pandemic is affecting them. So you can see that nearly 3/4 of the parents feel like in the middle school age to high school age and all affected. You see the red line pulling to the right. It's the percentage of how parents felt stressed being, parents of children at home because they can't go to school. And then I took this picture from the American Psychological Association. They just took a kind of conglomerate of what we've been through this year pictorially. And I think every picture depicts 1,000 words, right? From the cemetery to the cars lining up for COVID-19 testing or vaccines or whatnot. It described the mental health crisis in the United States. And I felt like things somehow got a little too bad where to the point that I was going to fast forward a little bit, not going through these slides. I recently even received a letter from the local Memorial Park and Mortuary to solicit me for business and to say, hey, Phillip Lowe, have you thought about your death yet? So it's just a funny way to say that, even these people realize that they have business to work at and they wanted to get some business from me. So the American Psychological Association kind of described the pandemic in a different way, right? Said we're a nation facing mental health crisis. And it's just not 2020 and 2021 and many years to come. So I don't know if you agree with that or not. I think this pandemic has a more lasting and profound impact on us than we all realize. As we are dealing with just the here and now shelter in place, there are a lot of profound effects we have not been able to describe quite yet. So, and now, so I just learned something today, which is quite upsetting for a lot of folks. When President Trump was still in the office, right? CDC had manipulated the number so that the total death, look a lot worse than what they really are. And it was just found now just last week. I saw it in the press where CDC admitted that some of the number were manipulated to look the previous administration looked bad. So having known that, it doesn't add to our comfort, all right? And how do we deal with the future? So knowing that the local mortuary is interested in me now, so I felt I need to do something for my own physical and mental health. So, so at this point, is it all about bad news with COVID-19? If you ask some of my patients, right, you'd be surprised to hear different responses. If I ask them, is COVID-19 the worst thing you ever experienced, or is that something that, all bad news, right? Some of the patients actually told me that no, the COVID-19 have been a blessing for them. My gosh, that might sound a little astounding to you, right? But for me, for example, when I was in LA, living in Thousand Oaks, right? Every month, every week, let's say, I have to fill up my tank twice. Now it's the other way around now. Every 2 weeks, I would fill up one tank or even less. So gas-wise, driving-wise, my time needing to fight through traffic, that have all gone away. And a lot of patients who are struggling with social anxiety, the fact that they don't need to face people face-to-face, it actually improved their mental health. So, so I want to just bring out some positive news, right? Positive news are the following. And if I could be an encouragement to most people who are fearful of COVID-19, I want to confess to you, I did something fairly seemingly stupid. I traveled internationally 3 times since the pandemic. One in January, one in August, one in November, all through 2020. And the reason is that I didn't believe all that I heard on the news, and I didn't believe all that I see on some of the public agency data, especially what's coming from China, right? I don't believe a bit. So this is what I found. Even the WebMD and major mental health agency and medical agency agree now. Majority of the time, COVID-19 only give mild symptoms. Think about that for a moment. So I didn't quite believe it. So I traveled 3 times internationally. What I found is the following. Masking, universal masking, and good hand hygiene absolutely protects us. I have not been sick a single time, even when I was traveling. Now, what's not helping though is social distancing 6 feet. That doesn't help much because it's not based on science. Now, you said, holy crap, I'm hearing a lot of things that are not consistent with what I knew from COVID-19, right? So I hope that I can spell with a Christian honesty and also with a sense of responsibility when I say these things to you. So I'm not fearful of COVID-19 when it was like March 2020. Today, I'm feeling with a greater sense of ease because I go into emergency room, I see patient on the bedside. Yesterday, there was a patient who PTSD, but confessed being a Christian. I allow him to hug me through the face shield, of course. I have a face shield, I have a mask, right? To less single digit. When both sides wears masks, regardless who has COVID, that dropped down to below 1%. That's because some people actually did not follow through with the hand hygiene. Now, let me explain to you why social distancing doesn't work and why church need to reopen. Now, 6 feet distancing, assuming that one person's saliva cannot travel in the air through 6 feet, right? Now, that is assuming we are in an absolute windless condition, or we're in an absolutely with no air conditioning system in place. Think about this. Where would you find a completely windless condition and a place with no air conditioning, whatnot? You can't. And that's why in Singapore, in Hong Kong, Taiwan, places that did really well with infection rate way down, they can't afford social distance because there's no place to maintain 6 feet. You'd be lucky to maintain a 1 foot distance from the guy that doing ATM, right? But they did really well with it because they start out early on with universal masking and adhere to really good hand washing hygiene. And they do not touch a facial area when they're outside. When they come home, make sure you always wash your hand. If you don't like your clothes, of course, you can get rid of the outer layer and universal. And absolutely that protects us. Okay, so if that brings comfort to you, that's the reason I want to explain to you. I travel 3 times internationally. I want to see what is it like in other parts of the globe and other parts of our country. In fact, including this year, I traveled 5 times on a plane. I haven't not gotten sick once. So the good news is that most people only have mild symptoms. Secondly is that with the infection, the vaccination that's going on today, we stand at approximately 13% total vaccination. By the end of summer, we will be looking at 99% vaccination. That means that we have kind of a cohort effect that we're no longer carrying contagious virus. And some of you might ask, hey, what about the variant? What about the second wave, the third wave, and all that? My answer is not any different than winter virus. See, on the winter virus, right, we only can guess at the strain of certain virus. We can't take care of all of them. But the main thing is that you want the majority of people protected. Even a variant we will have some sort of immunity even toward a variant, even with one type of vaccines, right? So if that conclusion doesn't quite convince you yet, we can kind of look at a different picture here. if you look at this vaccination data rate, right, from our world in data, which I trust the number quite a bit, by March 18, which is only a few days ago, we are reaching approximately over 75 million people. So that's one dose, and then the second dose will follow. Okay, I'm not too sure if anybody knows why we need to do two-dose approach, right? So primarily is that the first dose kind of bring up your immune system, and the second will fully vaccinate you. So that's a two-step. They found out when you have the first dose, you get maybe 60+% protection. At what the second dose, it reaches 95% protection. So far, so good. I'm going to go a little fast here, and I'm hoping that we can speak to the second half, because you kind of all know about the bad news, right? I don't want to give bad news. I want to focus on good news. So please consider that the vaccination, the mild symptoms and all that were good news, because we overreacted in the beginning. We should have, if I was Anthony Fauci, right, I would say the first thing, don't worry about social distancing. Go ahead and universally mask. If you don't have masking in the beginning, try to stay away from people and adhere to good hand hygiene. You'll be protected. See, I work in the front line. I work at the clinic, and I also work in emergency room. I would say my exposure a lot higher than average folks, wouldn't you say? But I was pretty safe. I feel safe today than ever before. So having said that, and I want to say a few words about practical things that keep us well. Practical things that keep us well. So I want to propose two kind of strategy that will keep us well. One strategy is called internal focus, and the other one is called external focus. Okay, internal focus and external focus. And the focus on internally, I have three things to say. One is to find a way to create your sense of normalcy. The second one is create discipline. And then the third one is engage in togetherness. Okay, let me just run through them real quick. I think some of you might already been practicing that, and some of which could be new to you. It's really important that we have a sense of normalcy, because with the COVID-19 shelter in place and some of our government overreaction and the agency overreaction, right? Why not wake up the same time, going to bed around the same time, exercise regularly? In light of not able to go to gym, what you can do, you can watch YouTube video doing yoga. I love yoga, by the way, but not in the transcendental sense, just the regular physical yoga. Me and my wife engage in this body project contest, right? She and I, dance in front of our TV like maniac, but we're just trying to keep ourselves healthy here. But we had a lot of fun. So we do the regular exercise at home, and then also we do hobbies and DIY projects.
Yes.
During COVID-19, what I did was that I do have more time, and I get less invitations for going out speaking to people. So I decided that my wife been making these homeless tent to house her vegetables. So I decided to buy her greenhouse. So the greenhouse is a kind of 10 feet by 6 feet wide. And look inside of this, she's been doing a lot of her own green experiment, and she's been actually eating them. And we have delicious organic vegetable ranging from kale to lettuce to green onions and white onions and all sorts of stuff. And we absolutely love it, because the fact that we're just not able to go out to a lot of places, restaurants are not open, gyms are not open, and all that stuff, right? So we create a sense of our own the DIY project on our own. And then I would say my wife's mental health has been better than ever before now that she looks at these vegetables. If she were to select between a day night with me and a day night with a vegetable, she would choose the latter. So anyway, so my encouragement is that if you can do the following, right? Exercise at home, and you can create some hobby like DIY project. My house looked better than ever before. Can you imagine? Pre-pandemic, my house was looking like a mess. But now I fixed the funnel, I fixed all the rain gutter, I cleaned out the leaves, and we have a lot of rain last few weeks. and it's been draining beautifully. So my house looked better than ever before. And so what we also did was that we create certain rituals together. Me and my wife will try to pray together and pray for each other. And my daughter's been looking for a job. She actually came and asked us for a family prayer for her. And we always eat dinner together. I have seen some patient of mine, essentially when they get home, right? Family will cook a big pot of dinner or something. Everybody walk in like buffet restaurant. They grab their own plate, they sneak into their own room, they do their own thing. And these don't help. Actually, like the regular communion that we have and regular gathering and of sort, right? These rituals really keep us well. So my encouragement is that don't let your house turn into a buffet dinner, but come together and do something together. Ritual help. So that's internal focus, right? So this is already talked about my DIY project. And the other one is internal focus is that I've been telling my patients as well that daily gratitude, what's being taught in Philippians chapter 4 and all throughout Psalm, has a research evidence show that it really does work. So in light of the pandemic, when we're being displaced from job, we can't go to places, right? Every morning I get up, the first thing before I say a word or look at it, I always learn to look for a way to give thanks and also being grateful. The fact that I can wake up, I have a job to go to, I can help other fellow in distress, right? It's really a wonderful feeling. So I also make a point if I'm not seeing patient, I find a way to greet one person cordially on the outside, right? And one thing I feel that's really important is a discipline and boundary is that we're not able to do as much during pandemic like we usually, and it's okay. It's okay to lower a little bit of our expectation. Maybe we're not producing as much. Maybe we're just not able to what you call it, meet our own productivity and anticipation pre-pandemic. It's okay. Now, so we did some togetherness, like on a weekly basis. My wife would go out hiking at least twice a week, or we go walk the reservoir, go to the mountain, doing some kind. We do domestic trips and virtual trips too. What I mean by virtual trips is found a lot of museums that are not open, world famous Louvre Museum, and in Italy, they offer virtual trip that way you can actually tour inside of these famous museums for free. And if you're interested, I can send a link to you later on. And I love it. I think these are better than when we could before pandemic. So some food for thought, right? Some food for thought. I think that social isolation is really bad news for us. As a church, I really pray that, with the early opening from CCTO, it's a wonderful thing. It's not a breeding ground for COVID-19 as long as we wear masks and then we keep our good hygiene, right? So with the social isolation, loneliness, we call the I-ness or illness. It's the word I, right? If you replace that I with a we, what do you end up with? You will come with wellness. So I-ness replaced with we become wellness. And I thought that was really interesting observation, and I do agree. We don't do very well in isolation, but we do better in community, even grieving. Recently, I have a patient whose 21-year-old son who joined the Navy just died from a tragic accident. And he finds it so hard to mourn for the loss of his son and not knowing why. And also because of pandemic, he has to mourn in isolation. So I encourage him to reach out to his spiritual community and try to do the best he can. And finally, his church reopened. He agreed to go back and, have pastor pray over him and have brother and sister together with him. He started doing better. So even grieving does better in togetherness. So anyway, and if you folks are so willing, if you're a little more courageous now after I told you that COVID-19 isn't that scary, you might want to consider external focused wellness, meaning that focus on giving back to the community. doing something such as, for example, calling senior center. A lot of senior in isolation, they love to just hear a warm voice from someone. And going to the animal shelter for volunteering and doing some donation, not just money, but donation of masks, PPE, food, and all that. A patient told me something that really cracks me up. She used to suffer from depressions and some trauma issue. And she said during the COVID-19, she decided to cut down a lot of the drape that she had and make masks out of them. At one point, she even cut out her own bras and make masks out of them. So I thought, my God, that was pretty courageous and embarrassing to tell men that she's, cutting out her own undergarment to, do PPE. But she does that. She donate to agency that initially was running low on masks, right? So these external focus, like doing work for Habitat for Humanity, somehow the part of, it's more blessed to give than receive really rings true, especially during the pandemic, where we become externally focused and being rewarded by helping someone like Good Samaritan. Anyway, that's all I have tonight. Actually, I just want to run through a few things, and I was hoping that maybe it's time we could turn into a little bit Q&A. And I don't know what I said kind of makes sense or not, or it's just a personal rambling. I hope it's certainly not personal rambling, but I certainly hope that there's something encouraging about, the things that we share tonight.